morning everyone! We are the Group 1 from 12 Alexander at Angeles City Senior High School, and today is the day we are going to discuss our research paper entitled Effects of the COVID-19 to the Sales of Sari-Sari Stores in Barangay Sapa, Libutad, Angeles City during pandemic. We, the researchers, all together conduct this study to identify how thus this pandemic affected our dear sellers who own sari-sari store in our mentioned locale.
The purpose of this study is to identify the effect of the COVID-19 to the sale of Barangay Sapa, Libutad, Angeles City this time of pandemic. This study used this quantitative method as specifically a descriptive research design, where it aims to gather numerical data as the result with the help of Google platform, which is Google form for distributing our survey questionnaire to our respondents. This study will provide sufficient information to the owners and other sellers about how reliable sari-sari store are, particularly in this time of pandemic, and how they respond to the business disruption, such as capitalism failure.
In this part, it will let you know that this aims to gather numerical data about the effects of this pandemic to the sellers of sari-sari stores in our mentioned local, where it is located along the Magalang Road right in front of the Church of the King Parish. According to Magkilat, year 2020, during the GCQ from June to July, where some restriction has been learned, a result from the Pascal survey shows a continuing difficulty among micro-retail enterprises. In a total of 368 sari-sari stores, 24% of these decided to continue closing their businesses. However, some stores that are mostly operated by women are here to stay and chose to continue their operation, according to the PNG Philippines.
This time of pandemic, the Philippine economy has moved to the recovery stage, but the micro and small, medium-sized enterprises still facing a difficulty when it comes to their sales because of the drop in demand and revenue, according to Shinozaki, year 2021. Various quarantine restrictions by governments around the world have caused some businesses to suffer much more than others, with only companies in the commodities value chain still operating. The rest of the economy will have to figure out how to respond to business disruption.
Because of that, sellers were required to provide equipment that can help to ease the spreading of virus, such as plastic that will cover their store and alcohol for their customers. Safety protocols are also implemented, such as social distancing, wearing face masks and face shield, and putting alcohol regularly. This time of pandemic, it really shows how the seller from sari-sari store are really affected by COVID-19. But on the other side, there are still stores choose to continue their operating, even there is threat of virus, and most of them were operated by women.
Statements from various legal sources show how sales have declined due to the threat of virus. This has had a greater impact on their families, especially as it is one of their sources of income. In this study, researchers try to gather data to support their claims and statements from various legal sources. Researchers will also provide questionnaires to answer based on their level of consent. On the next part, conceptual framework prepared by the researchers that includes the variables of our study.
Our statement of the problem involves one main problem, which is on how does COVID-19 affected the sales of the sellers of sari-sari store in Barangay Sapa, Libutad, Angeles City, and two specific problems, which are what are the challenges experienced by the sellers of the sari-sari store, and what are the impacts of the declared cases of COVID-19 to your store.
The study involved 22 respondents who are the sellers of Barangay Sapa, Libutad. They were chosen for their ability to run a business, especially a sari-sari store. Researchers include data that will be studied and analyzed to explain the result of the study. It aims to identify the difficulties sellers face and the reported cases of COVID-19 in the store. However, there are limitations to undetectable studies to due unclear conditions.
In this part, seller will benefit from this study by means of being aware of stringent regulatory and punitive measures, such as confiscation, regional and national bans to contain the spread of COVID-19. The significance of the study is that it provides suppliers, and other sellers with sufficient information about how reliable the store are and how they respond to business disruption, such as the collapse of capitalism.
This chapter is going to discuss about the design used by the researcher, which is quantitative method, specifically a descriptive research design together with our survey questionnaire, through a Google platform which is Google Form for our instrument to reach our respondent without even physical contact. Data will going to analyze as soon as the results are received with the use of tables and the graph.
In this study, researchers use quantitative method to obtain numerical data rather than option or ideas about the impacts of the COVID-19 on sales at the sari-sari stores in Barangay Sapa, Libutan, Angeles City. This study used a descriptive research design to determine features, frequency, and classification. In this useful if you don't have much information about a topic or situation. Data from our survey was collected by researchers using surveys managed by Google Forms. This Google platforms contains questions about the phenomenon of Barangay Sapa, Libutan selling to sari-sari store.
This study provides questionnaire surveys using the Google platform, specifically Google Forms, which are distributed in the nearby sari-sari stores in Barangay Sapa, Libutan, the city of Angeles. In the area we are referring to, Google Forms was chosen for its reliability, especially during a pandemic that makes it difficult for people to take the streets. The responses are collected via Gmail, parsed, inspected, and complied to produce results.
Our participants are the sellers of sari-sari store in Barangay Sapa, Libutan. We chose them to participate and help gather data to finalize the findings of this study. To aid in data collection, a survey was conducted via Google Forms using the Likert scale. During this pandemic, we used a Google platform such as Google Form to conduct a safety survey to our respondents.
Respondent response were received via Google Form and counted as well. After that, researcher used table to modify the response by calculating the mean and standard deviation of the result. This allows you to see which of the four options has the majority of answer in each number.
While this paper is still in progress, researchers use Google Forms to create surveys. Participants who are the sellers will provide their responses right after the researchers distributed the questionnaires. Researchers will make sure that the respondents have access to the forms, and after receiving the feedback, they will eventually analyze and compute all the data using graphs and tables. The results are shown in graphs and tables compiled by the researchers. It also indicates the most retailers need to raise their price of their products as the cost of primary raw materials rises. Given the outbreak, respondents are also considering store security protocols.
Based on the respondents' answer, 68.2% agreed that they have to raise their price because of the increase in the price of primary commodities. 9.1% strongly agree, while 22.7% disagree to this statement. While in the second graph, it shows that 11 of 22 respondents agreed to buy protective equipments to follow safety protocols because of pandemic as one of its impact to them. 45% strongly agreed and 4.5% disagreed to this statement.
This table shows the majority of the respondent responses to our survey questionnaires. First table shows how they agree and disagree to the challenges that they have experienced, and second table is for the statement that state the possible impacts of the COVID-19 to their store.
Based on all that has been gathered, some respondents agree that the pandemic really affected their livelihood, especially their sale, but most of them are quite known and most of the stores are operated by women. This allows us to understand why some respondents continue to sell products based on their feedback. Despite of this pandemic, they can close the store because they know it can lead to a loss of financial income.
In the middle of this pandemic, retailers are still trying to survive amidst this time. Entrepreneurs were able to emerge from the crisis by representing us in dealing with COVID-19 more efficiently. Additionally, this paper would like to recommend websites found in our references for other articles and journals that you may read and can get another information that talks about the same topic with us. And from our group, we would like to say thank you for listening and watching our presentation that talks about our study. We're glad to share our paper which discuss one of the most topic we must be aware nowadays. Again, we are the Group 1. God bless you.